Hi and welcome back to the Mandarin Blueprint Podcast, episode 94 today. And let's jump in, as usual, to the grammar point. So for those of you new to the podcast, what we do is we chat about a grammar point that's useful in Chinese, and that you can go and a bunch of example sentences to explain that grammar point, or grammar points, if we have the energy. And after we've done that, we're going to jump into the emails, comments that we've had this week from all you lovely people on the course, the Mandarin Blueprint Method. And then we will go through a little bit deeper into the method and talk about movies. Now, these aren't actual movies. These are movies that we teach you how to create in your mind in order to learn Chinese characters. That's how part of our course works. So if you're not on the course, that part will be very curious to you. You won't know what's going on, but it's very clear once you actually sign up for a free trial and try it out. So if you're learning Chinese and you're not on the course or you've never tried it before, give it a shot. Go to mandarinblueprint.com and sign up for a 7-day free trial. You also get a 30-day money-back guarantee too. All right, so today's grammar point is very, very useful. Well, they're all kind of useful, but this one is especially useful. It struck me as something that you'll be able to apply immediately if you aren't already, and it's all to do with if. So the conditionals of if, 什么什么, then. By the way, that 什么什么, it basically means ... That's sort of a Chinese learning habit that you sort of develop. 什么什么 as in what, just means ... Okay, so just a little side note there. So if and then. And there's two ways we're going to cover today. So if you're on the course, the Mandarin Blueprint Method course itself, you have a subscription, you'll have the flashcard decks and you'll be able to search for the following tags. So these tags popping up on screen right now, you can go and check those. So today we're going to talk about 如果, as in if, 就, if then, 如果就. And the second if then is going to be 要是的话. Okay, so let's jump into the first sentence and things will all become very, very clear. So this first one reads, 如果你联系上了她，请告诉我. So it's a very simple sentence. 如果 if you contact her, 请告诉我, please tell me. Now, I'll tell you, this 请 is very formal. You would only use it in a work setting or speaking to someone whose status is above you in some way, or that, or not necessarily above you, but you're in a bank and you're talking to a bank teller. You could say 请 to them, just some sort of formal situation. Do not use 请 ever in sort of a casual environment. Not because people get offended, but it'll just sound weird because Chinese people do not say please generally like to people that they're in any way personal with. They have ways of saying please, but definitely not 请. Okay? So if you're in any situation that's not formal, you would just say 就告诉我. Okay? So 如果就, you're seeing that 如果就, they sort of go together very, very well. Okay? If you manage to reach her, please let me know. 如果你联系上了她，就告诉我. I should also point out here that 如果 and 要是 are interchangeable most of the time. So you could say 要是你联系上了她，就告诉我. Yeah, both are fine. Let's move on to sentence 2. 如果你现在不能打电话的话, that's a weird one, isn't it? 打电话的话. Right. It sounds weird, but it's actually something that you could say, no worries. 我们就发信息吧. So we've got the 如果 and the 就 again. So let's go through that again slowly. 如果你现在不能打电话的话，我们就发信息吧. 发信息 is send a text instead. So very straightforward, just 如果 and 就. Let's move on to sentence 3. Now this phrase I really like. It's using 如果, but it's using, what is this? If I remember my English teaching days, if you were would be past perfect. I can't remember, but yeah, anyway, so it's if you were my boyfriend, then all would be well. So how to say that if you were construction? 如果什么什么, so 如果 and then 就好了. Just add 如果 and then the thing you want to happen or the you wish was the case, and then 就好了 afterwards. It's very simple. So let's have a look at this one. 如果你是我男朋友就好了。如果你是我女朋友就好了. if you were my girlfriend, then all would be well. I really like this phrase, and you'll be using it a lot. And a really common phrase that you'll hear is 你开心就好,你开心就好. So you can actually remove the 如果 and just add the 就好 at the end. And that's a very common one, but be careful with the way you use it because it could come across as sarcastic, especially when you're sending it in a text. Yeah, as long as you're happy, you know. So, and sarcasm does exist heavily in China as well, contrary to popular opinion. So yeah, just watch out for that one. Just make sure you're being sincere when you say it. You have a sincere expression on your face. So that's from level 25. You might see, again, if you're new to this podcast or you're not on the course, you'll notice that we have levels with every sentence. And that's because these sentences unlock at a certain point. And we only give you these sentences once you know all of the characters or words in them, except for maybe one or two here and there. But you've definitely seen everything before. Okay, so that's why we put the levels there. It's just saying once you get to level 25, which should take you a couple of months or something like that from zero, you'll be able to read this without any help, without translation or pinyin or anything like that. Okay, it's really cool. So let's move on to sentence 4. Now this sentence is going to show you not only how to use 钥匙, which again can be interchangeable with 如果, but the most important thing about this sentence is not showing you what to use, it's showing you what you can omit if you wish. And the Chinese people do that all the time, just like we do in English. We omit tons of words all the time, but it's still technically standard English. Do you know why? Because we're English native speakers and we're saying it. That's why. Okay, so let's have a look at this sentence here. So I'm going to say the full version first, sentence 4, and then I'm going to say it the way that a lazy Chinese person might say it, right? Okay, so here we go. 要是睡不着的话就喝一杯羊奶 I almost said 牛奶 this one's 羊奶 but this one's goat milk instead of cow milk 要是睡不着的话就喝一杯羊奶吧 okay so now let's say it in the sort of condensed lazy person way 睡不着的话喝一杯羊奶吧 almost said 牛奶 again 睡不着的话 so you completely get rid of 要是 And the only thing here that signifies in this sentence, in the shortened version, that it's an if statement is the 的话. And I use this all the time. Instead of saying 如果 or 要是 or there's a higher level one 就算, right? You just say 的话 at the end of the thing that is the if, that is the condition. So if you can't sleep, drink a glass of goat milk. That's an interesting one. Yeah, so pretty much all of this could be skipped as long as you have the 的话 in there. So yeah, it's a very, very nice little shortcut for you. Just remember that one and go ahead and try it out with your Chinese tutor or your friends, whoever it is that you're practicing Chinese with. Let's go on to the final sentence here, sentence 5. And this is another one that shows you the omission, but you can also omit the 的话. As long as you have the 要是 or the 如果 in there, you can still make it work. So, 你要是回来的话我们就去运动吧 So, if you come back, let's go exercise, let's go work out. So, you can actually just say 你要是回来我们运动吧 or, sorry, 我们去运动吧你要是回来我们去运动吧 Okay, so that works absolutely fine. Or guess what you could also do is just making this up on the fly, but just looking at the sentence here, you could also just say 你回来的话我们去运动吧 or 你回来的话我们就去运动吧 You can switch around a lot. There's lots of different ways you can omit things, add things in. You can say the full thing. And I'll tell you just a little tip for you guys. I'm talking about what you can omit. And if you're really confident about what you're saying, and it's just coming out, no problem, very fluent, and you're in a good headspace, or all that sort of stuff, then say the shortened version if you like. But a little sneaky thing I like to do is when I'm sort of coming up with thoughts at the same time. Maybe I haven't practiced Chinese for a while, or I'm trying to say a completely new thought that I've never said before, and so I'm a little bit slow. I need a bit of time to think. Say the full version with a bit of space in between, and it gives you time to sort of plan your speech a little bit more. It gives you time to get out your thought, but it also sounds completely native. So, for example, if this was me, and I was, maybe I was a bit tired, which I usually am these days because I've got a new baby. So I would say, 你要是回来的话，我们就去运动吧. I would say the whole thing, slow it down, maybe extend some sounds like 的话, say it. It's a cool little tip that works for me, and that is something that you should remember. Is just to, slow it down, add in as many words as you can. You could also add in a 那个 in the middle there, or 就是, you can add in sort of a filler words as well. But there's more about that in some of the bonus videos in pronunciation mastery, I believe. All right, so that's it for today. I hope that was useful, guys. Again, remember, all of these have got levels in them, and you can actually search the grammar tag that we spoke about in your flashcard, so you can get up all of the ifs and the thens and the conditionals, all of the sentences in our entire course, which is 7,000 sentences at the moment. You can search for all the ifs and the conditionals, and you can go and review them in your own time. Okay. All right. So let's move on. I hope that was helpful, guys. All right. This week, again, we've got some great comments and emails. I think I'm going to end up not saying that anymore because they're always just week after week. It just knocks it out of the park, you guys. You've got some really cool stuff coming in. And we don't have to do much editing at all. I mean, we take out things that, just aren't relevant. Look, a general listener wouldn't necessarily find that particularly useful, but of course it's useful to people on the course. But yeah, it might seem a bit out of place in the podcast, but we don't really do much pruning. It's we just sort of every week we get all the emails and comments and everything like that, and we just lay them out and we remove things that are like duplicates or that are just completely wouldn't have any relevance at all. But that's not that much. It's all good stuff, So without further ado, let's jump in. We've first got a comment here from Alex Sumray. This was actually a community post, and this is our forum, and this was not really meant for us, Phil and I. It was meant for just a general question for students out there and stuff. So he says so, and then just a really long Chinese sentence that we provide later on in the course, and he just says, "Man alive." So it does make some kind of sense now upon seeing the translation, but whenever I see sentences like this, it's still hard for me to envision myself ever being able to speak like that or just understand that kind of sentence in real life. So I was just after some personal anecdotes, really. Once we go through a whole load more comprehensible input, how long could one realistically expect to start picking this more complex stuff up and get to actually speaking? That's like it's as my mother would say, it's like asking how long's a piece of string, right? It depends on how much time you put in. I'm not going to say too much with this particular comment because there's another comment that is sort of a similar question, and I'll answer both at the same time. But this is it's a long sentence, and if someone was saying this in real life, even a native speaker, if they were just saying it off the cuff, they might add in a lot of what I said earlier in the grammar section, which is like filler words. They would ums, ahs. Listen to me. I'm not particularly articulate. I'm really not. I have to do several takes sometimes for just like a certain comment, or I say something I didn't mean to say and I have to go back. And I'm not that. I'm a native speaker of English, and I have a lot of trouble with English sometimes. So, and I add a lot. See, I do it all the time. I have big gaps between words, and there are other people that are also native speakers that are even worse than me, way worse than me, and there are people that are way better and sound like just incredible and so articulate. It depends on how many books they read. It depends on their intelligence. It depends on how much alcohol they've consumed in their life, right? It depends on all sorts of different factors. So I'll just say that first. But you don't want to, so therefore I don't need to learn, right? That's not, I'm just saying that, first of all, this is a long sentence, and, even a native speaker might not be able to just blurt it out, right? So you shouldn't hold yourself to that standard, certainly not. How much comprehensible input? Well, first you get listening down, right? So you need to listen a lot. constantly to things at your level as much as you can. I would say at least an hour a day just of listening during your sort of peak study period of however many years it is, or months, or how long you want to study for. Stuff that you can understand, put it on the background, at least an hour. I mean, several hours really, because it's just the background, right? Of course, if you've got a wife and kids and a job and stuff, you can't just have Chinese on all the time. But I'm just saying, ideally, I mean, like Katsumoto, for example, we're huge fans of that guy's website, AJATT, all Japanese all the time.com. And like he went to Japan and he went from 0 to essentially a decent enough level of fluency and literacy in Japanese to get a full-time job working at a Japanese company in Japan. So very, very, very impressive. A year and a half to get to that like level, not just fluency, but decent fluency, like good fluency. And he did that by listening 24 hours a day, 18 to 24 hours a day. Okay, did that guy have, probably, a girlfriend or a serious relationship at that time? Probably not, right? So it's as much as you can, and you will, if you do that, and it's stuff that you can understand, you will find yourself catching things more and more, and it won't take years. It will take days, weeks, months for things to start clicking, but you have to do it consistently. And speaking, again, is the same thing. It's a separate skill. Not completely separate, of course. We 100% stand by the idea of comprehensible input. That's like the fuel, right? It's what you need to actually make the car go, but you still need a mechanic to sort everything out. It's not just about fuel, right? So you actually need to practice speaking and writing on their own, output, with a tutor or language exchange partner or whatever you do. And that needs to be a focus of yours as well. But it doesn't have to be the focus right now. It can be if you want. The key is to do what you feel. I did say I wouldn't answer this question in full, but I pretty much have already. So I'll come back around to this in a minute. Next one is from Jackie. I'm going to say Jackie. It looks French-ish, right? Jackie Vinters. That doesn't seem like a French last name, though. I'm going to call you Jackie. So, hi, Luke and Phil. I just wanted to thank you both for an amazing course. The effort and passion you have poured into it are very evident, and I'm excited to continue my journey up that acquisition mountain with you. I feel that I'm in good hands. Awesome. Thank you. I never intended to learn Mandarin, as I would class myself as someone who is definitely not a quote-unquote natural at languages, although I did study French and German at school with widely varying degrees of success. Unfortunately, for the last few years, I have suffered with PTSD. I'm sorry to hear that. And the side effect of that is extreme anxiety. I found it impossible to focus on anything, including watching television. And then about 2 years ago, I discovered CD dramas. The storylines and cinematography, especially in wuxia and xianxia dramas, hooked me. And the fact I had to read subtitles to understand them made me focus and helped to reduce that constant adrenaline. Wow. Yes. Those TV shows get a lot of stick. They get a lot of bad things said about them. But once you get into them, they're really, a lot of them are kind of depressing, if I'm honest. There's a lot of like, everyone's dying, just cancer everywhere, like people getting shot, and there's a lot, like, that seems to be a running theme that I've noticed. There's a lot of just hardcore, depressing story lines and things like that. But what's the word? Enrapturing. That's not the word. See, English is terrible. But you really get into it. I think it's about 18 months now since I watched a TV program in English. Wow, that's good immersion there for you. Apart from the news, so lots of passive Mandarin input, and not surprisingly, I started to recognize the occasional word or phrase. I would even check in to see if I was correct with Alexa. I played a PS4 RPG in Mandarin and have another waiting as a treat for when I can understand more. I started to listen to CD dramas, Chinese dramas, for those C-dramas, sorry. OSTs? I don't know what OST is. And Mando Pop. on Spotify. And to be able to sing along to more than 中国是我家, it isn't, but that won't stop me from belting it out proudly, lol. And 我爱你, etc. would be awesome. I'm looking forward to the day I can read hanzi, that's Chinese characters, and discover the names of the singers I love and the names of the songs I have heard and sung or hummed along with every day for the past 6 months. 3 months ago, I tested the water with a free, up to a certain point, a freemium Chinese language learning app, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, but soon realized its limitations, and I was left with so many unanswered questions and some dubiously useful phrases for beginners, e.g. 你的鱼臭臭的, your fish is smelly. Yeah, that's a really common thing. That's a really common thing, is that there's so many of these apps that look amazing and they feel amazing. They're very addictive. And as someone with 16 million points on Memrise, you know, I know what I'm talking about, right? But then if you just use these apps on their own, I'm not saying they're bad. Memrise is a fantastic resource as long as you use it correctly. As in, not just that, right? You have to use lots of other stuff and have a certain structure about your study. Yeah, and you can get lost in it, and then you get disappointed after all those hours and energy points invested. It's tough. To be honest, I struggled internally with whether or not it was worth the financial investment of a paid course, but realized that if I'm going to progress, I needed a more comprehensive and structured route. Yes, if you want to develop a skill, it involves investment, and the level of, you know, what you can get for $30 a month, or 50 or $100 a month in terms of education, is far more value than any university course, in my opinion. Unless you're studying to be a doctor or a lawyer or something. But even then, you'd be surprised. So yeah, and I was like this as well. When I first started out, I was like, oh no, I'm not going to spend $10 a month on this app. I'll be really hesitant. And then I'd go out and in the evening, and spend like 50 RMB, or £5 on a single beer that's gone, and it's gone forever. Like, that wouldn't cross my mind that that's a problem, I discovered Mandarin Blueprint whilst browsing on YouTube and was impressed with how clear and detailed the pronunciation videos were. It was also a massive draw for me that Luke is a fellow Brit, so I had the same pronunciation starting point. Having now completed the pronunciation course, I'm very impressed with you guys, and now I know why I had such difficulty in saying 自行车. My poor tongue had been completely lost. That's a tough one, to be fair. I love the motivation videos from Phil. His enthusiasm is catching, and it gives an online course a real feeling of camaraderie. A big thumbs up too for the end of unit emails. I have my fingers crossed that they continue throughout the next course, the foundation course where you learn characters. I only have access to an Android tablet and couldn't open the Anki links in the sidebar. The links in the emails work fine. Oh, this is just about Anki here. Oh, yeah, and I sent this to Jerry. He really liked that, by the way. He said, thank you to Annie and Jerry, too. That must have been such a monotonous task to do all that Anki card recording, but it is certainly appreciated. I do think Jerry needs a mention of some kind under the instructors section for his contribution. I'm listening to him every day, and I feel sad that he's left out. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I sent that to Jerry, and he was very flattered. But if you know him, he doesn't care. He's fine. He's just, he's all good. He's very happy to be appreciated, though. Although I'm a beginner, I've noticed that along with my pronunciation improvement, my listening comprehension has also improved since starting this course. Yes, pronunciation is not just about speaking correctly. That's one of the 3 parts. It's about understanding, identifying the sounds, and also reading the sounds in pinyin. Three equal parts, really. And they all help each other. It gives another... Where am I? Sorry, I keep interrupting myself. Improved since starting this course, and I can now hear certain tongue positions clearly, which gives another cipher aid to understanding what has been said. I've been fortunate enough to visit China once. It was a long time ago, but I visited Beijing, Xi'an, and Chengdu. I spent a couple of weeks in and around the Wulong Panda Center before the devastating earthquake. It is a beautiful part of the world. You are very lucky to live there. Yes, it certainly is. This is a long-term journey for me and quite an emotional one, as I am finally ready to understand the language which accompanied me when I was in total darkness and continues to support me every day. I genuinely want to pay it back in some way, as cheesy as that sounds, but I get so happy when I see a word written down that I have heard countless times. It is awesome to finally get to learn it properly. So thank you both for creating this course, for all your hard work and enthusiasm. I'm really looking forward to continuing to learn with you. Kind regards, Jackie. Thanks for that wonderful comment. Or was it an email? I'm not sure. Yes, it was from email. It was wonderful to read, and I'm sure a lot of people would find inspiration from that too. In terms of paying it forward, paying it back, I don't know. I mean, that's really nice of you to think that. But I think one of the ways you could is when you become awesome at our method, you could send in your comments and help other people reading on the course, like new people on the course, and help them out. Maybe interact a little bit in the community, in the forum, support others. That'd be amazing. That'd be incredible. But, we don't expect that from anyone. But, yeah, thank you very much for that, Jackie. Okay, the next one we have here is another email from Alan Aves. And he says, I think the Mandarin Blueprint concept is really good. I learned Mandarin at university here in Australia and also lived in China, Henan, Zhengzhou, for almost 3 years, although I never really became fluent due to laziness, and as an EFL teacher in China, my students all wanted to practice their English and translate for me whenever possible. Yep. I'm forcing myself to work my way through the whole pronunciation course before progressing further. It has been an excellent review. And I've also picked up a number of useful words and tips that my previous study and experience hadn't. I'll certainly be continuing with the whole course, and I would recommend it to anyone wanting to either brush up on their Chinese or learn from scratch. My wife is Chinese, and her English is excellent, so we don't really converse in Chinese that much. She gave your course a thumbs up before I signed up, so that in itself is a pretty good recommendation. I love that. I love getting the approval of native Chinese people, because people can be very harsh when it comes to their own language. Chinese people are relatively not very harsh at all, but they can be. You'd be surprised if you're a stranger talking to them face to face. But if that's a wife talking to her husband, she's going to say what she really feels. And so that's really nice to get that. She thought, though, both of you are technically competent in Mandarin. Luke's flow and intonation are a bit more natural, more native speaker-like. Well, thank you very much. The only negative, if you can call that, is some of your image-based clues are a bit vague. But once you've associated the required word or phrase with the image, not a problem. E.g., for some of the phrases, you could easily substitute ta, or wǒ, which have all been covered in your course at that point, and still be correct, even though your answer generally only shows one of the tas as correct. Very minor thing, not really an issue. Yeah, I know what you mean. That's the one drawback of closed deletes is, that's why we say only delete one character in these closed delete flashcards, but still sometimes there's a lot of alternatives that you could have, so that's why you use images to support them. But yeah, that can be a little bit mafan, but it's only in the early stages you'll find that an issue. When you move on to the full course and you sort of delve into that, it won't be such a big deal. But thanks a lot, Alan. Thanks for taking the time to send that. Really appreciate it, and thanks to your wife as well for the thumbs up. And this next one's from Michael Rochford, and he's been on our course for a while now. And he sent me this email, and he's like, I didn't want to send it in the forum. I didn't think it was appropriate. I wanted to just send it privately to you guys, because he's really happy with his progress. But it's similar to Alex in the very beginning of the first email that I mentioned. It was the issue with understanding, comprehending, and it's very frustrating. So let's go through, and I've already, of course, answered Michael directly, but I think a lot of other people listening to this could also benefit from some tips on this, right? So he says, I flew through the foundation course at light speed for me. It still totally blows my mind at how much I had learned and how fun it was. I've never missed a single day with my Anki, that's the flashcards. Even when I was spending 4 hours a day of the review, wow, I was learning so much so fast. I've always kept every card because the more exposure, the better, right? That's correct. I listened to 2 hours every workday to a radio channel from Chengdu because that is where you are. I haven't even watched a single TV show in English since last November, so very similar to Jackie there. Hell, I'm even trying to cook my own Chinese food. So much for the blah, blah, blah. The crux of my problem is I only ever wanted to learn to read Chinese. After all, I don't know a single Chinese person or have anywhere close to like a Chinatown to go visit, especially in this pandemic. The problem is now that I had a taste, I find I want the whole damn pie. I want to be able to understand and converse with someone in Chinese and have learned so much about the amazing Chinese culture. I want to come to visit China and take in everything. But I really suck at it. I hear a sentence and I know all the words, but I get stuck on the first bit. And by the time I figure it out, they are 6 sentences ahead. So I stopped at the end of the foundation method and just practice. I'm worried now because my Anki is down to less than an hour a day, and I find myself checking again just so I can get the card the next day. I'm not even close when I shadow. It's kind of frustrating. So shadowing is where you have a piece of audio and written, and you shadow it. You listen and you try and read at the same time out loud as you're listening. And it takes a lot of practice to get right. For me too. It's not easy. And if I had to do it in English, it would be tough, right? But it's incredibly good for you in your language skills because you practice listening, reading is ideally, and speaking all at the same time, and of course pronunciation and all that. I did get an online tutor, in brackets. She's totally amazed at the vocabulary that I have. And at my pronunciation, and thinks I've been studying for longer than I have. See how great your teaching method is? Wow, I talked a lot. What should I do now? Continue on to the intermediate level, even though I'm not able to speak or understand at any kind of speed? Or just keep doing what I'm doing? In a few years, when you have your own tutors, I know what the answer will be. I love your course, and for so many more reasons that I never had before I started. You both are brilliant, and I can never thank you enough for what you've given me. 谢谢, Mike. So you see what I mean, guys? We get these sorts of emails, not just every week, but every day. We get these sorts of emails and comments, just people saying lovely stuff. And this is a great email. Thank you, Mike. So when I originally answered Mike, I just said in a very long-winded, boring video, I think it lasted about 10 minutes, but it could have been summed up in one sentence, which is you need to practice more, you need to listen more, you need more time, something like that. That's pretty much it. You know, you've smashed through how many weeks has it been? I don't know how long, I don't know if you mentioned how long, but I imagine you smashed through 1,000 words and 600 characters, learning how to read, write, and pronounce everything correctly. 80% of the language by coverage in probably a few weeks, maybe a few months, right? From pretty much zero. So your brain has just, you know, you've learned all this stuff, but you still need time to adapt to and upgrade your brain from, you know, recognizing individual sounds, like individual character, individual word, reading an individual sentence, to listening to full dialogues or full sentences and catching everything. And you said you're listening to a native radio show from Chengdu. Man, that's tough for me too sometimes. Like they'll say a lot of words that even I don't know, you know, or I've never heard because I just don't listen to radio, and especially not local radio, you know. So I think one thing that I would say, first of all, is take a step back, get some listening material at your level, still native speed, but play it at your level. We have longer form content too, but I would suggest also signing up for another resource. Maybe Du Chinese is a very popular one. Du Chinese, DU Chinese, Chairman's Bow, the Chairman's Bow. These are reading mainly, but they have audio with all their reading, and that's what you should be focusing on, shadowing. When you're not doing active reading and shadowing or interleave learning, which takes a lot of energy, you want to maybe chill out, don't fully chill out. Listen to stuff in the background. Chinese pop-up Chinese. Those two are all you'll need. That was probably like, you know, Chinese class 101 and learn Chinese online and all this sort of stuff. But those two are my favorites. That's all you'll need. Sign up for a month, download everything you can, smash your way through it. I think you can still do it like that. Maybe it's all in an app now, but have some stuff on in the background all the time. Follow along, shadow when you can, when you've got the energy. And you keep doing that. It's the same what I said with Alex. You keep doing that, at your level. It has to be at your level. If it's too far above your level, you're wasting your time most of the time. It's not a complete waste of time because you're still getting used to the sound, which is cool, but it's generally not efficient because you miss too much. Therefore, you're missing the message of what's being said. Therefore, you're not comprehending what's being said. Therefore, it's not comprehensible input anymore. It's just sounds. If I sat in front of a Japanese TV show for 10 years, it would not make me fluent in Japanese. You need to work your way up. And shadowing. Yeah, shadowing is really tough. But even if it's at your level, it's still really tough. So find something that's simple. Shadow an individual sentence, then an individual paragraph, the same sort of snippet or dialogue, 30-second dialogue over and over and over, and 20, 30, 50, 100 times on a single dialogue. And you'll learn so much from that single dialogue, not just the words, but also the sentence intonation, the pronunciation, the grammar structures within those 30 seconds. It'll become a part of you. And yeah, it's a bit boring, like for some people, but I don't think you find that boring once you start seeing that every single time you read it, that you get better and better. It's very satisfying, actually. But that's intense. That's like intensive study, So when you do that for like half an hour a day, and in a month, you will notice a marked improvement in what you can understand and what you can say. But it takes repetitive practice. And then come back. You do that right now, today. All of you doing that, actually. All of you listening to this on the course or off the course, and you're studying Chinese, whatever. Start doing that. Listen to stuff, and try to read along at the same time as listening, and speak as well if you can. Depending on. So if you're either feeling lazy or you're tired or you don't have the ability because of your situation, just listen. That's the lowest level. Just listen actively as you can. Now, listening passively is like the lowest level, right? You just sort of like you're playing a game or you're doing your Anki and you're listening to stuff in the background. That's level 1. Listening actively, really trying to understand what they're saying, repeating it. And then listening and reading together, or listening and speaking together. One of the two is level 3. And then all 4 of those together, shadowing, essentially, is level 4. That's like the top level. I've just made that up on the spot, but that's what you should think about it. If you do level 4 every day for a month, or level 2, 3, or 4 every single day for half an hour or an hour at different levels depending on how you're feeling, you will notice a huge difference in 30 days, guaranteed. So do that and come back in 30 days and let me know how it went. All right. But well done, Mike. You're doing fine. You learn 80% of the language in a few weeks. So that's another thing that's a problem is us being human beings. It's a really annoying thing that we have, that we're kind of all like this, really. You do something amazing like that, like Roseanne. If you go and watch his interview with me a few weeks back, or I recently released it, and he's the same. He smashed the entire course, 57 levels, 4,000 words, 1,500 characters. 94% of the language done, like acquired, or at least on the way towards acquiring it. And he's like, yeah, I'm not really happy with that. Like, I wish I could do this. He's like, that's what we do. You do this amazing thing. He did that in like less than 6 months, from pretty much zero. It's like, it's amazing. You learn how to read Chinese really well in 6 months, from zero. But then we go, I'm not having to go, you, Roseanne, or you, Mike, but we're all like, I'm like this too. We all are. We go, well, that's normal now. That's normal. Literacy in Chinese in 6 months or whatever. Next, right, what's my next dream that I want to achieve? Okay, that, so it's quite funny, actually, But give yourself a pat on your back, and that attitude as well will also be the thing that makes you achieve great things. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but yeah, take a step back in it and appreciate what you've achieved as well. And let me know how that goes after 30 days. I'd be very interested to hear. All right, next one we've got is Beth Parazzo. I believe Phil pronounced this correctly last week. She mentioned it, so I'm probably not going to do that. I'll do my best, Beth. So Paraso. Hello, Luke and Phil. Let me introduce myself. I am a 58-year-old woman. I've been a substitute teacher now for 13 years. I stick to subbing at local high school due to COVID and the school going online. I've had plenty of time to work on my Chinese these last 3 months. Sadly, 2 of those months were before I discovered your program, or I could have accomplished a lot more than I have. Anyway, I was born in Long Island, New York, raised in Massachusetts and the New Orleans area, but have called Nevada my home for the past 35 years. My husband and I live outside Reno in Fallon, a smallish farming community, home of the Navy's Top Gun program, by the way. We have 5 children, wow, 3 of whom are married, and 2 grandchildren, incredible. Short story of my Chinese journey. I first thought of learning Chinese almost 40 years ago. I had already started learning Spanish, so I continued studying Spanish with just the thought that someday I would try to learn Chinese. Then, 2.5 years ago, after having been very unproductive in anything, slightly depressed for about 6 months, I decided that learning Chinese using Duolingo might be a way for me to start being productive again. For the past 2.5 years, I've been studying Chinese using Duolingo, Rosetta Stone, and some YouTube podcasts, some textbooks, a liánxì. I don't know how I know what this is, but this is this is basically SRS, but manual. So you put the certain cards in the certain box, and that's okay. That's 2 days later. Okay, that's 10 days later. You know, it's I've never seen it, but I know what it is. Online Anki flashcards for pronunciation and Chinese shows on Netflix and at Viki.com. I could recognize many written words, write just about none of them, and sort of pronounce them, with my listening skills being very poor. I now look at this time as me collecting puzzle pieces without being able to assemble hardly any of the puzzle or collecting building blocks and not building anything. Exactly. Me too. This is exactly what I did. I just had a brickyard. I didn't have a house. I learned, the first thing I did was learn pronunciation. So I was all right there, but I did sort of learn it in a very boring way, like with a book and stuff, pinyin. And then I learned 5,000 words using Memrise, just smashed them into my head without any knowledge of the characters that made the words up. Then I learned 3,000 characters in 6 months using the method that we now teach. Which was, it was a great move. I needed to learn characters, but it was all just bits. I had 5,000 words, 3,000 characters, and they weren't connected, and they didn't have any sentences to use in context. It was all just a mess. And then I wrote down grammar points from all set learning just over and over again, thinking that would be like the cement that would glue these bricks together. Maybe that would solve it. I need grammar, right? Okay, I'll just go and learn a bunch of grammar points. It was useless, almost useless. Not knocking the site. It was just the way I used it was rubbish. And then I finally found Anki, thanks to Phil. He introduced me to Anki and sentences, reading sentences. And reading the sentences was really tough because it was just, it's going from all these individual disparate pieces of information and then trying to read them together. But eventually it started working. And then I discovered Fluent Forever, that book. Gabriel Weiner's a legend. He's really, really smart. He gave me the knowledge to upgrade my Anki cards, to add images and audio to my Anki cards. And then I started listening more, like just generally listening and immersing myself in the language. And it gradually sort of pieced itself together. You can always fix these problems, but it left me with some serious problems speaking for a long time. But eventually it all worked itself out. Anyway, that's my story. A few months ago, I started seeing ads for your pronunciation course on Facebook. I'm not sure how long it took before I finally investigated. The sale price of $9.99, that's the sale we had on, was just what I needed to take a chance on your course. Remember, my husband is a school teacher and we raised 5 children, so my budget was a bit tight, and I'd just spent $200 on lifetime Rosetta Stone subscription. I was only a couple of videos into the pronunciation course when I knew I wanted to take the rest of your courses. Before I was already familiar with so many words, I've been going through the course pretty fast. I started the pronunciation course on May 11th, and today, June 16th, I did level 20 in the foundation class. Whoa. Level 20. That's incredible. No, I had to reread that a couple of times. I thought you meant you finished the pronunciation mastery in that time. Okay, so in a month. All right. Interesting. Very interesting. Lately, I've been tackling a level each day, although I may need to slow down now as I'm not doing a good job studying the unlocked words and I'm a bit behind. Yeah, because the levels get way bigger and bigger and bigger as you progress through. They start off at 5 characters each level and they go to like 60, 70 characters towards the end. So I don't think you'll be able to keep that up. But very, very good. I spend hours every day on my Chinese and I'm loving it. I find it interesting that I will learn a new word and then actually hear it in a C-drama soon after. That's a weird thing that happens. I still get this all the time. I learn a character, even now, or I learn a word that just pick up a word from reading comics, which is what I like to do now. And I'm like, oh, I've never seen that before. Have I never seen that in like 5 years? That's weird. All right. And then I'll hear it on a TV show that day, or I'll hear my wife speaking on the phone and she'll just say the word. I'm like, what? It's almost as if that you don't notice it being said until you learn it in some context. It's weird. But yeah, very interesting. It's like Mandarin Blueprint is helping me to take all the puzzle pieces I've collected over the past 2.5 years and start joining them together, or to take the building blocks and actually start building something. I really don't know why I've been interested in learning Chinese. Maybe it's because so many people in the world speak it. Is it just fascinating to learn about something so different from my language? Is it just a challenge? I don't know. I don't see myself traveling outside the United States, but I do hope that I can find a way to use Chinese in the US somehow. I just love feeling like a whole new world is being opened up to me. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I love how you have structured your courses. It's obvious you have spent a huge amount of time studying many different aspects of learning. You are fun to watch, and I have a good time during lessons. The comments other students have made are also a big help, huge help. Yes, they are. So keep them coming, please, guys. I knew I needed to read more in Chinese, but hadn't found a source yet. So the sentences you introduced, and then the fact that later the pinyin was taken away was great. Some of your sentences do seem a bit much, but since we can ask for clarifications, I guess that's okay. I think you mean like a little bit difficult for your level. I had heard of memory palaces before, but I'd never tried to use that system. So I love that I now have that skill, or developing it at any rate. Yes, you do. Awesome. Yeah. And anyway, I'm totally loving your course and I would recommend it to anyone. My Chinese language skills have really developed and I look forward to continuing to improve my abilities. Thanks, Luke and Phil. Beth. Thank you so much, Beth. Just another great message from you guys this week. Yeah, it's music to our ears. And please keep us updated on how you get on. We're very interested to know. Next one we have here is just, I actually don't have a name for this one, but I thought I'd leave it in because, like I said a couple of weeks back, we don't get that many compliments about Anki because it's a big part of our course, because there's a bit of a learning curve to it. So when I get a compliment about Anki, I always got to put it in. It says, just says, Anki is truly fantastic. I have used it for other languages and other related topics like maths. It effectively hacks your brain. That, in combination with these amazing memory techniques, really helps. Yes, that's an important point to mention because Anki is fantastic, but it's just a tool. Just like I mentioned Memrise earlier, it's a tool. And if you use it wrong, you're going to have a bad time. But if you use it right, in the right way that it's supposed to be used, it's a fantastic resource. So Anki is not for rote learning, just shoving bits of information into your head. You have to learn the information first. But as long as you learn the information first, and use Anki just to review, you're golden. It's the best thing out there. There's nothing better. The next one here is from Julio. He's on It's a Word for He. He says, I'm so happy. This is he's reading an example sentence. So we start introducing sentences, like I said earlier, and we take away the pinyin, and later on we even take away the English. Do we? I think we do. Or did we add it back in? I can't remember. But anyway, we take away all the help for you. And Julio just says, I'm so happy I can read all the characters. Well, except for the last one, ba. I never thought that in such a short time, a month and a week, I would be able to know all of this. I absolutely love this course. Brilliant. Thank you, Julio. And Heath, I thought I'd follow up with Heath here because he mentioned ba. He says, I've been trying to better understand how to use ba. Would it be correct to say that using ba to express a suggestion is similar in English to saying, how about, or would you mind, could we, shall we, and so on? As in, 你们坐这边吧. Yeah, you would add it on the end to just, it's a suggestion. Yes, exactly. Absolutely right. Spot on. I thought I'd add this as well. This is in response to a video later on in the course where Phil sort of went off topic a little bit, and he mentioned what our goal is in Mandarin Blueprint, and he was very complimentary about that. So I'll say what James said first, and then I'll say what Phil said. So he says, I love what you said in this video. It revealed your true motivation as a teacher. That is, to effectively make yourself redundant. We teach sailing, and I always say to my students that my ultimate aim is to make them better at sailing than me. That has happened once that I can be sure of. He is now our senior instructor, but probably more. It means you don't hold back as a teacher. Kudos to you guys. Yeah, that's what we want. If we can make, if we can make you guys more fluent than us, more and able to read better and faster and understand more than us, that makes us feel incredible. that would be awesome. We haven't quite been around long enough for that yet, but I am sure I've met a handful of people already, face to face. Some of our clients, well, face to online face, that I have a very strong feeling that they will surpass us very soon, and that's good. I think a very bad teacher would want to, would want to hold them back so they don't overtake them. So they, So, and that's what basically Phil was saying. It's like our goal at Mandarin Blueprint is not to keep you forever. Not at this stage, anyway. I mean, obviously, when we have the resources to hire, like someone said earlier, to hire our own tutors and develop an app and all this sort of stuff, all these dreams that we have that we want to do in the next few years. Once we get there, then sure, we will keep you longer because we can, right? But at this stage, our goal is to get you literate and able to understand Chinese so you can consume whatever you like. You can go out there and buy Chinese pod. You can go out there and buy Link, go and get a subscription to them. We don't want you to keep you to ourselves. We want you to sort of spread your wings and fly, and we're sort of giving you those wings and that practice. So, so nice to hear you say that, James. Thank you, mate. So next we have Stephen. He says, I'm slightly confused as to why shàng means above, to go up, and it also means previous, which seems a bit weird when you first hear it. And xià means below or to go down or next. In my head, above, go up, next, all makes sense together. Is there some reasoning behind this to help me remember? Yeah, it is a bit weird, and it's just it's a strange thing about Chinese. Like shàng, as in up, also means previous, so it doesn't make much sense. So you can imagine it this way. And this is what I used to tell my students in the live classes years ago. So imagine that Chinese time, past, present, and future. So it goes from up to down. It doesn't go back to forward. It goes up to down. So the past is above you, and then the time travels, and it present, and then the future is below your feet. So that makes more sense. So shàng is in the past, and present is here, and xià is in the future. That's just a cool little tidbit. I don't know if that works for everyone, but it worked for me, certainly. And I can't remember who told me that originally. I might be stealing that from someone. I don't know. But I've used so many different Chinese learning courses and products and textbooks over the years, I can't remember what it is. This next one here is from Joan on the Mama Baba, and this is the pronunciation mastery. She says, I noticed at the end of the video you said mother and father in English, but when you said it in Mandarin, you said ba ma. So would you naturally say father first? And yes, I didn't actually think about it at the time, but yes, you would say ba ma or baba mama. You wouldn't say mama baba. Just wouldn't, it just wouldn't work. But yeah, I guess that works the same way in English as well. You would say my mother and father, you wouldn't really say my father and mother, I guess. I mean, it feels better the first way anyway. The next one here is from Deborah Driscoll, and she just asks, is there much difference between 计划 and 打算? So, not really. It's just that they both can be used in both the verb and the noun. So, 计划 is in a plan, and 打算 is also a plan. Like, 我没有打算, I don't have a plan. 我没计划, I don't have a plan. And we can say 我计划做 I plan to do something, and also you can say 打算 do something. But I would just personally say that I've heard 打算 used as the verb more often. So 我打算 blah, 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 I plan to do something, and I've heard 计划 used more in the noun. 你有计划吗? 你有打算吗? Both are fine, but I've heard more 计划. But both of them essentially are interchangeable as far as I know. Okay. Next, we have Heath Campbell on 从, which means from. And he says, this is just an interesting little tidbit here. He says, is it just a coincidence that the way these Chinese sentences are structured is similar to the Hanzi movie method? You start with the actor, the place, and then you place them in the set, and then describe what happened. I just thought, it's a very interesting way of thinking. And people on the course, have a little think about that and think about Chinese grammar in longer sentences, and see what you think. Let me know what you think. All right, now let's move on to the final section of the podcast where we talk about movies. So that's how we actually learn characters, and there's a link in the description of the podcast if you want to learn more. So let's start with Della on Make a Movie for Zhi. Now, Della gives us tons of movies, and we can't go through all of them, but I've chosen the 2 that she sent in this week that are for the most abstract characters, because I think those are the most important. That's when people need the most help, I think, most inspiration. So, zhi is a very abstract concept. It means until. So let's see how Della handles it. George, that's the actor, is in the backyard of my childhood home. He's digging a large hole in the soil with a large razor blade. The only tool at his disposal in order to plant the beautiful young apple tree that lies nearby. He contentedly digs until the razor blade turns up a large nose in the soil. George immediately stops digging. Shocked and dismayed, he looks around in a panic because he cannot continue to dig the hole until he does something with the nose sitting up on top of the soil. Spotting a pail, he carefully picks up the nose with the end of his fingers and throws it into the pail. Then he resumes digging. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I think as long as you emphasize that he's digging. And by the way, no need for the apple tree. You can if you want. It's completely fine to use it, but you don't need it to make the story work. He's just digging. Doesn't matter why. Yeah. Just save yourself that energy in the future. So he's digging. You don't know why. It doesn't matter why. He's digging a hole, and then he comes across this nose. I would end the scene there because that's the idea of it until. And I would maybe he's digging with this razor blade, and suddenly, boom, and maybe the razor blade breaks. And then so he could dig until, and there's this, it's a very dramatic moment, big sound effects, and then boom, he can't dig anymore. So he was digging fine until he hit that big nose in the ground, and maybe even the nose is like stuck to the razor blade, and he's just like, all right, well, that's the end of my digging for the day, because end, And that's how I would maybe tweak it, but great concept there, Della. Alex Summeray on Make a Movie for Zhen, which means how. Now, how, again, that is very abstract, right? So how is Alex going to handle this? He says, Z actor in my EN set. Fair amount of dialogue in this one, but I'll try to ham it up with the expressions so I'm not too reliant on it. So you've been listening. That's great. Oh, and P.S., graphic warning. I'm going to keep it in the podcast anyway because it's not too crazy graphic. So, if you want to skip ahead 30 seconds, go ahead and do that. How can I make her love me? How? Z actor stroking his beard with his hand. Pondering his next move. Aha. He gets his saw and starts sawing away through the gaping hole in his chest. He reaches in and grabs his own heart. He looks over to the girl he so admires and starts walking towards her. Her arms outstretched, his heart ready to be given over. Oh my God, Z, how the hell did you do that? He shows her the saw with a wry grin. How on earth did you think that would win me round? How could I be with someone so heartless? Thankfully, this charade didn't deter her too much and has been in a guanxi with my Z actor since school. True story. Oh, that's great. That's a very, very, very nice indeed. So that's actually a great example of the special effect extras, bringing in people related to the actor or related to the set in order to aid the movie in some way. That's a really good one. Yeah, it's a bit violent, it's a bit graphic, but I think that'll work. And you don't need that dialogue, by the way. You don't need any of it at the end anyway. At least at the end, you don't need. Everything can be done visually in this. But, again, just like I said with Della, still add it if you want. But I'm saying it doesn't have to be there. You could trim it if you wanted to. All right, second one from Della. This is to do with bien. So the next one here, bien. Bella is in the bathroom of my AN location. She has Dr. Watson at her side, and they both hold magnifying glasses. They raise their heads and sniff, then, with eyebrows raised, look at each other in surprise. They notice a change in the aroma of the room, and they are determined to find the cause. They immediately lower their heads to their magnifying glasses once more and carefully examine every square inch of the bathroom. Slowly pulling back the shower curtain, they expose the previously sweaty, stinky guy who looks freshly showered and is holding a stick of deodorant. They look at each other and nod. This explains the change in the room's aroma. Okay, that's very good. We've got two visual, clear examples of change and olfactory as well. You've got the smell as well. So I have nothing to say about that one. That says a change for me. Very well done. Nacho, make a movie for Ling, which means another. So we've got a mouth and we've got the ring of the Lord of the Rings, which is power. That's what Li means. My Li actress opens the door. Li actress opens the door of the bathroom when she saw the mouth picking up the ring from the floor. When he did it, the window suddenly opened, and far away was the eye of Sauron that finally found the ring in the bathroom. He launched a ray of death directly to the mouth, killing it instantly. At that moment, the Queen song, Another One Bites the Dust, began to play. That's really good, and that's such a catchy song. Another One Bites the Dust. You got that at the end. I think even though there's no other real visual reference to the word another, to that meaning, I think it will still work. But ideally, we could add another. We could add the idea of a visual idea of another. Maybe the Eye of Sauron doesn't just kill the mouth, but maybe he takes the ring, like uses the power to take the ring, and the mouth starts being upset, and your lead actress says, "Don't worry, I had another one for you," and she just gives him the ring, and he's like, "Yeah," he's all happy. I don't know, something like that. So the idea of another, I've got another one, just to make that visual as well. It's always good to at least have some visual element in there. George Laura on make a movie for Yuan, which courtyard, I guess. Janus, the bi-headed god, is in a great hurry. He has received a celestial order. In the bathroom of the AN set, he wants to build an institute for the correct visitation of the toilet. He has already started to raise a small stone wall. If all goes well, he wants to be finished in the evening. If so, it will be time to wave the checkered flag outside the bathroom. Mission accomplished. Good, because the right side component is Wan, which means finished. That's the checkered flag. And the wall is the left side component. And together he's saying he wants to build an institute, which, courtyard is, I've got that in my mind, but the idea, I think the word we chose is institute. So that works quite well. It would be nice again to have that final visual idea of institute, but it's a very tough one to do. So I think that should be good enough. I think that should be good enough. But when I picture institute, I picture someone in a suit, like a representative of some kind that's associated with the building. But that's just me personally, So, but yeah, great. Cheers, George. Next, we've got Dom Thompson on Make a Movie 4. Li, which means upright. Lindsay Lohan is walking through the backyard, bent over and straining under the weight of the huge Viking helmet. She takes the helmet off, drops it on the ground, and replaces it with a beret. She can now stand upright. Done. Simple, great, well done, Dom. No worries there. Very simple. Now, we move on to the very next character in the sequence, which Dom has also done. And he's also got a graphic one, but he's decided not to share, thankfully. He says, a non-podcast appropriate association with the word position. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Walter White, and a wedding cake. And he just, that's all he said. So that made me laugh. And if anyone wants to complain about the graphic nature of that, well, you have only yourself to blame because you did it. All right. Next we've got James Braun. Make a movie for cài, which means dishes. That's what we refer to in Chinese as dishes. So he says, my C actor is having a picnic in the backyard of my AI set. The picnic table is covered with lots of dishes of food. He leaves for a minute, and when he comes back, he is shocked to see a beautiful bald eagle has landed on the table and is eating from one of the dishes. He wants to scare it away, so he takes a rose and throws it at the eagle. Unfortunately, he misses, and the rose flies over the top. That's great. So obviously we've got the rose is the top component, then we've got the claw sort of component, the grabbing component, which is the eagle. And the table, the picnic table, is the wood. It works out really well. Great placement of your props, I must say. Positioning, boom, 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 on top of each other. And yeah, the rose misses the eagle. It's like, that's fine. It works really well. You're interacting with everything, which is good. Can't complain about that one at all. Well done. Next one here is Christine. Make a movie for wǒmen, which means to ask. And she says, my Wu actor is Woody from Toy Story. That was mine too. He is in the bathroom of my EN location. There is a massive stone doorway. There are sun and clouds shown behind the doorway. Suddenly a massive pair of lips appears and hangs in the air in the doorway. They fire off some questions to Woody. Where's Buzz Lightyear? Where's Andy? Where's Mr. Potato Head? And I can imagine Woody's getting like, maybe you could even shine a light in his face. Like, that's just my association, like, like a police interrogation. And Woody's getting all stressed out and doesn't know how to answer. Maybe he even gets like microphones shoved in his face or something like that. Maybe that's not a great idea, actually. You don't want to add in unnecessary objects, but I don't know, I'm getting carried away. But great idea, Christine. Really like it. So thank you very much, Christine, and thank you everyone this week who sent in all your incredible comments. It's so helpful for us and just motivating for us and people on the course. So please keep that coming. Let us know what you think. If you have any trouble with Chinese, even if you're not on the course, you need some help, let us know. contact@mandarinblueprint.com is the email. So next week you'll have Phil for episode 95. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye, everyone.